such a big deal. But the main point is that the creator wants us to transform darkness into light. Okay, now I just got this other live started. I have like 20 different lives going at the same time. Um, Hopefully this actually will work. Because the thing is, when you try to do when you try to do a live from TikTok, no, from YouTube, screen share to TikTok, it turns off the audio. But now I'm opening TikTok on a browser in a different phone, so I don't actually hear the audio, but I'm assuming it's working because it worked earlier. So I'm just gonna leave it on and hope for the best. Um, yeah, so this is a very elaborate operation we got going on. But anyway, so welcome to those just joining us on YouTube and those just joining us in general. Just make sure it's actually working. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, basically we started a new Torah portion, a new Torah cycle, 2 weeks ago. Basically, Jews, people everywhere in the world, every week read a little bit of the Torah, and they just finished the whole Torah, and they started over again, pretty much from scratch. And then, so we started at the beginning, believe it or not. And the beginning talks about the creation of the universe from scratch. Here, let's see if this person, they can say, hey, what's up? How's it going? Can you hear me? Hello? Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Cool, cool. Is there anything you wanted to talk about, or you just wanted to do a match? Okay. What's the point of these games? Do you like get points or anything, or just whoever likes the most wins? Like, do you get any rewards from this, or just kind of like fun? So this is for those just joining us, this is a TikTok game where you just try to see who has the most likes within like a few minutes. 5 minutes is a long time. Should we talk about anything in the meantime? It's kind of important. I mean, yeah, we're both at 0. How does it work though? Is it just based on likes? Whoever likes the most gets more?
No, thanks, to get more viewers.
Oh, viewers. That's pretty.
More viewers, more gifters, more people.
But we both have 0, so. Anyway, I was just talking about like Torah stuff. So, I mean, I guess I could continue unless you want to talk about something else.
Yeah, hopefully the next couple of days will be had viewers.
Interesting.
That's it,
really. Anyway,
yeah, some people is just passing by.
Yeah, everyone's passing by. Good job. Anyway, did you have any questions you wanted to talk about, or not? Not really.
Where are you from, sir?
I'm from, I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh.
Yeah. It's cool.
I'm from
Where are you from, if I may ask?
California.
California. Oh, nice. I'm originally from California. I mean, I grew up there. I just moved to New York a few years ago. Nice. What do you think of California nowadays, as opposed to earlier? It's interesting.
Yeah, it's hot in California.
Yeah, definitely. It's hot, and it's pretty cold in New York, but not too cold inside. So that's a bit.
Snow's coming.
Yeah, usually every year around this time, or actually usually a month later or so, it comes for like a week.
Next month.
Yeah, it might come earlier. Usually it's like a week of just like snow. Sometimes there's like blizzards and stuff. It's kind of interesting. I guess I don't really pay attention to that. I'm like Jewish, but yeah.
The first time in TikTok, how are you doing that?
Oh, nice. Welcome to the party.
Hello, thank you for joining guys for this.
Nice. Yes. I was talking to the viewers earlier that in the Torah we just started a new cycle of reading the Torah, and I'm just gonna start reading this thing here. Yeah, so I'm gonna start reading this talk. This is So we started reading a part of the Torah. The beginning of the Torah talks about the creation of the universe, and the Torah doesn't have to tell us about the creation of the universe. Really, the Torah is not like just a storybook. The Torah is a book of laws and lessons. But the Torah does tell us about the creation. It says, Rashi says that the only reason why the Torah tells us about creation is just in case the nations of the world might mistakenly claim that the Jewish people stole the 7 lands of Canaan when they conquered it in the times of Joshua. And in order for the Jewish people to dispel that notion, the Torah tells us a lesson which is done by telling us the creation of the universe, which is he made the creation of the universe there as like an eternal testament for everyone to see that for all time the Creator made the entire universe and all of the land as well, not only the heavens but the physical earth. And since he created everything from absolutely nothing, yeah, nice. So since the Creator created everything from totally nothing, then he owns all of the land that exists in the entire universe. And because he owns the land everywhere, he has the legal right to give it to anyone he wanted to. And first, he wanted to, it was his will to give it to the Jewish people at the beginning of creation. Like it says in another explanation where it says, in the beginning, the Creator made the heavens and the earth. The Hebrew word, in the beginning, could also be read grammatically for the sake of the beginning, meaning there's this thing called the beginning, and for the sake of that beginning did the Creator make the heavens and the earth. So Rashi says that beginning is both the Jewish people and the Torah. So essentially it means that, because other verses say that the Jewish people are the beginning of his planting. That's another verse. And a different verse says that the Torah is the beginning of his way. So both those things are called the beginning. And since the beginning, it says the world was created for the sake of the beginning, which is for the sake of the Jewish people to fulfill the Torah. So, and that's done in the ultimate way in the land of Israel, because there's a lot of different, especially when the Messiah comes, because there's a lot of different laws that are associated with the land of. All right, I'll see you. I don't know how to get out of this. Yes. Yeah, have a good one. Cool. Yeah, so I mean, already at the beginning of the Torah, it alludes to the universe being created for the sake of the Jewish people, for the sake of the Torah, and the ultimate state of fulfilling the Torah is in the land of Israel. So the point is that in the beginning of creation, the Creator had this desire to have the mitzvahs, the commandments being done to bring light into the world, and so he wanted to give the land of Israel to the Jewish people at the beginning of time. But for a temporary amount of time, first of all, the Creator didn't even give the Torah until thousands of years after the world was created. And during that time also, he gave it, after he initially wanted to give it to the Jewish people at the beginning of time. In the meantime, he gave it to the Canaanite nations with the same will that he wanted to give it to the Jewish people, but he had to have a unique will to give it to the Canaanite nations for that limited amount of time. And then later, when the Creator chose Abraham, and especially afterwards when the Jewish people conquered the land through Joshua, then the Creator, with his will, took it away from the Canaanite nations forever and gave it to us, basically. So it says the nations might think, other nations, because the Canaanite nations were all wiped out, they don't really exist anymore, so it doesn't really have such a practical application for them. But other people might think that they stole the land. But the commentaries that we read in another live said that they wouldn't think that the Jewish people, they wouldn't be upset just that the Jewish people stole land from those Canaanite nations thousands of years ago. But their claim really highlights when they said that you're thieves, you stole those land of 7 nations. It's really, it says that they're claiming the Jewish people stole it, not in the sense of conquering the land, because it says in other commentaries that everyone would agree that conquering land through a war is not considered theft according to any legal system. Because if it was considered theft, and theft is one of the 7 basic laws of universal morality. The Torah, before the Creator gave the full Torah to the Jewish people, he first gave 7 laws of basic human morality to the Gentiles as well, before the Jewish people even existed. And those were called the 7 laws of Noah, since after the flood they were finalized, and that's when humanity kind of started, the humanity that we know today. There were 7 laws of basic morality, like don't do this and do some other things. Like these are like the bare minimum. And one of those laws is do not steal. So stealing is very not stealing, should I say, is a very important thing to do because it's one of the foundations of morality. So if conquering land through a war would be considered actual theft, then the Torah would have told us many places, or at least one place, that it is theft. And the Torah would have, hypothetically, told us about punishments that people would have had for conquering lands with war throughout history, because there's many wars that are mentioned in the Torah, not only Jewish people, but other wars, but the Torah never mentions anything of the sort, not even a remote hint of any indication that conquest through war is considered theft. So it's definitely not considered theft. Conquest through war is just one of the many legitimate ways of acquiring property. It's a legal. So everyone would agree that it's like a legal method of acquisition. So there's no question about that. It's just that the other people would falsely claim that the Jewish people essentially like kind of changed the nature of the land itself. Because before the Jewish people conquered it by the Creator's command, other nations could also theoretically conquer it if they wanted to. They had the ability to buy the land, or they had the ability to conquer it through war, through their own wars. But once the Jewish people had the land, then not only did the domain of the land change from one domain to another domain, but the actual nature not only did the domain of the land change from one domain to another domain, but the actual nature of the existence of land itself changed forever. Because once the Jewish people conquered it, then when other nations try to live in those lands, it says that they're not even able to live. They're not able to even live in the land. It says that throughout history, other nations tried to settle in the land of Israel, and the land went barren. The land would not allow them to even exist in the land. So that's because when the Creator gave it to the Jewish people, it wasn't just a transfer of ownership like it happens throughout other legal transactions, even though it was also legal because it was just a conquer through war, which is legal transaction. But it wasn't a regular legal transaction. It was a transfer of not only ownership, but a transfer of existence itself. The land itself eternally became the exclusive property of only the Jewish people, such that not only does it legally belong to them, but no one else, physically, no one else has the ability to settle in the land of Israel. I mean, there were other people who tried to conquer it from the Jewish people, like the Romans and the other people that kicked the Jews out of their land, but no one else was ever able to make their own country inside of Israel. In the past, Israel was just barren. When the Jews weren't there, it was just barren. The physical nature of the land itself changed once the Creator gave it to the Jewish people. This was talked about in the last week's live, mentioned in the Kutei Sichos, volume 5, in the beginning, with all the sources there at length. It was essentially, I think it was pretty much like a new novelty made, arrived at in that context, basically. But yeah, essentially. So when the Creator gave the land of Israel to the Jews, the land itself changed eternally and forever. So since the land changed forever, then the other nations might claim, not that, I mean, they wouldn't be upset about the Jewish people stealing it from the lands of nations of Canaan, because who cares about them? They're not even, don't even exist anymore. But the other nations are claiming that we stole it from them, meaning not stealing in the sense of legally stealing, because it wasn't a legal theft. It wasn't a theft. It was a legal transaction. But they're claiming that because through their acquisition, they changed the nature of the land itself by the creator. Like the creator essentially changed the nature of the land such that it could never belong to anyone else, then that's like stealing from the possibility of anyone else having any rights to land, just like they have possible rights to other lands. And so even though they don't have actual rights to it, but they at least, if not for that gift of the creator, other people might have at least had potential rights of being able to buy it or conquer it, just like they could conquer other lands. But once it went to the Jewish people, then that possibility was taken away. So they no longer have even the physical possibility to do so. And that's what the other nations would be falsely claiming. Oh, you guys stole the land. Not, I mean, they stole the land of the seven nations. They're not complaining about the seven nations. Like, they're not fighting on their behalf. Like, why would the other nations care about these seven nations that were already wiped out 1,000 years ago? But no, the other nations are claiming they stole it from the other nations, from the possibility of the other nations being able to conquer. And regarding that response, we say that the Torah begins with well, there's different layers to the response, but the basic response is, because we know from the beginning of the Torah that the Creator made the world, means that He doesn't only own the quantity of everything that exists in the world, which would mean like, okay, He owns the land, so we could give the land to everyone who wants just because He's like a landlord. I mean, that's also true, but that's not the main point. The main point, since He created the world from scratch, He also owns the very concept of existence itself. So the fact that other lands had the ability to be transferred between different people, that was already just part of the creation that the Creator made. But the same Creator that made that existence could also change the existence of the land of Israel forever, such that once He gave it to the Jewish people, it can no longer ever even possibly belong to anyone else. And but then, really, a deeper question. Rashi essentially, at the beginning of this verse, says, why does the Torah start with the creation of the world? Since the Torah is a book of laws, it should have started with the first commandment, the first law that the Jewish people got, which was already at the end of the Exodus, which is more after the entire book of Genesis and the whole beginning of Exodus. The Torah should have started with that first commandment. So Rashi says, why does the Torah start with the creation of the universe, which also includes the entire book of Genesis and all the stories there, and only afterwards does it go to the Jewish people in the later part of the Torah? Why doesn't the Torah just start talking about the Jewish people and the laws right away? Like the laws of God. It starts with a bunch of other stuff, like the world and like other nations and stuff. Like, why is it even mentioning that? And then Rashi goes to the whole thing about, because in case other nations would claim they stole the land of Israel, we can tell them the Creator created the entire world and He can give it to anyone who wants to. But this Kudesichos, another way to say that, what does the answer really say? Because it's not just saying that the Torah should not have mentioned the creation of the world at all, because creation is like the foundation of faith and foundation of belief in anything. I mean, if the world wasn't created, then there wouldn't be any place for the Torah itself. So not only is the creation of the world the first thing that happened, but it's also the most important thing to mention, because if not for creation, you wouldn't even have any like laws of the Torah with the Creator, because how could there be a Creator without creation, kind of thing. So it's really important to mention creation. So how could Rashi say, we shouldn't have even mentioned creation? But no, what Rashi is saying that the Torah should maybe not have started with creation, but maybe the Torah should have started right away with the Jewish people and the laws, and maybe afterwards it could have talked about creation, or creation could have been published in a separate book. The Creator could have given multiple books. He could have given the Torah, which is the book of law, but He also could have maybe given books of creation and stuff as separate books. But not that creation should not have been mentioned. But based on this whole thing in the Sikha, in the talk for the Rebbe, it says that the real answer is saying that the reason why the Torah begins with the creation of the world and all these other mundane things, and only afterwards goes to the holiness, which is like the purpose of creation, which I have like the commandments of the Creator being done by the Jewish people, and also the Noahide laws, which were done in the best way after the Torah was given to the Jewish people, even though they happened before, but they were done at a much higher level after the Torah was given. So only Torah only talks about that stuff afterwards. And not only does the Torah talk about it, but the universe itself happened where first there was a bunch of mundane stuff, and afterwards they had the holiness. So that was the idea that if the Torah and if the universe in general would have only begun with pure holiness right away, then it wouldn't be the main point. Because the main point is that the Creator wanted to have a dwelling place in the lowest possible level, from within the lowest possible level. So if it would have, if everything would have just been pure holiness immediately, then there wouldn't be the possibility of elevating the lowest possible level. But since the Torah begins with the mundane act of creation, which is the concealment, the creation of the world is the concealment of the Creator. People think it's a revelation, but really, in order to create the world, the Creator had to conceal himself and hide himself. And he hides himself, and there's also a lot of other stuff that doesn't look so good in the beginning of the Torah, the flood and all these other sins and stuff. So the Torah starts out with all this seemingly not really good stuff, and then afterwards, finally, it gets to the story of Abraham, and then there's some other cool stories with that, and then after all these stories of the forefathers, then finally it talks about the Jewish people's exodus in Egypt, or exile in Egypt, and only after that does it get to the juicy stuff about the commandments and like the Exodus and the Torah. That's like, if the Creator wrote the Torah, the Creator's the smartest author ever, so why not just get to the good stuff right away? Because by starting with all this mundane stuff, like the world and like the other nations in the beginning of the world, and the world, and how the land of Israel was first given to the Canaanite nations, and then only later taken away to the Jewish people. Through all of that, the Torah is able to elevate the lowest level. If the Torah would have only begun with creation, it would not have elevated the lower levels. But because it begins with all this other mundane stuff, then the purpose of that is for the Torah to take the lowest level of things and to elevate the lowest level from within the lowest level. So that's the reason why he gave it to the nations of Canaan at first, in order for the Jewish people to take it away from them through the Creator, for the Creator to take it away and give it to the Jewish people afterwards. Because if he would have only given the land of Israel to the Jewish people right away, then they would not have been able to elevate that energy that exists in the lower levels of existence. So because he gave it to the lower levels of existence first, then that allows us to elevate that to the Creator. If he would not have given it to us first, then there could have been, there could have still been evil and good, but then there would just be two separate things. Like, okay, good is one thing, and the evil stuff has no connection to the Creator at all. But when the Creator first made the bad, and then from within the bad turned into good, then we're able to elevate the bad energy and make it and reveal the true essence of that. And the true essence of everything is the Osmos, is the Creator, and that's like the main answer. That the Torah. That's why the Torah begins with the creation of the world, because it starts out with the lowest level, which is the creation of the world, is the concealment of the Creator, which is the lowest possible thing. And only afterwards does it get to the good stuff about the revelation of the Creator through the Torah. Only a lot later, because through that we're able to elevate the world, the entire world. We're able to elevate the entire universe, because it says because that's what the Torah begins with, and the purpose of the Torah is to elevate the things that it talks about. That's why the Torah gives us commandments, because the commandments are actions that we do in the physical world with other physical objects. Those actions elevate the objects and elevate the energy around those objects. So when the Torah begins with the creation of the universe, the Torah is meaning to elevate the universe, giving us the strength to elevate the universe from within the lowest level possibly. Anyway, so that's the basic answer of what the book of Genesis that we had, or the parsha of the book of Genesis that we're in now, which starts with the creation of the world, and afterwards we read about the flood, of Noah. And then afterwards, last week we read about how the Creator revealed himself to Abraham and told him to go to the land of Israel. Even though that parsha starts out, it says, go for yourself, go from your land, from your birthplace, from your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you. It was the land of Israel, but the Creator did not tell him what land. At first, the Creator did not tell him what land he was going to go to. He just said, "Oh, just start going, go." And that was part of a test. The Creator tested Abraham many different times in order to see if he'll walk in his ways. And one of the tests the Creator gave Abraham was just to tell him to start leaving his land. And not only him, but he also had like servants, and like he had a lot of Instagram followers and stuff. He had like thousands of followers that he had. He started monotheism from absolutely nothing. And he had people, he had thousands of people that would learn from him. And he himself, his wife, and all of the people that he was teaching about the Creator, they all traveled. It's like they had back in the day, it's like they had YouTube, but in person kind of thing. And instead of online, people had to just like follow each other actually physically. So he had like thousands of people go with him. They were just going. They didn't even know where they were going. He said Abraham just said, "Okay, the Creator told me to start going to the land He's going to show us," and He didn't even tell us what land it was. So they just started walking, and then the Creator brought them to the land of Israel. Oh man, okay, it's a little frozen. Okay, welcome back. I tried to restart, but now I have to put the background music for some of my people. Since I've asked that about the reference. Sorry, welcome back. Yeah, I had to close it because phone lagged, and then I had to close it the second time. After I brought it back, and there was this other line that was playing in the background. So yeah, just anyway. So last week's parsha we read about how the Creator revealed himself to Abraham. He just told him to go. He said, "Yeah, just start going. I'm not going to tell you where to go. You just got to go somewhere." And then they ended up going to the land of Israel. And when the Creator gave to him forever, He made an eternal promise to him about Moshiach, about the Messiah in the future, about how all the land would be there and stuff, and how He would see them out. Everyone else, then gave him essentially eventually the son Isaac. Well, that's actually this week's portion. No, so at the end of last week's portion, the Creator told him to circumcise himself, which was a very holy commandment to do, and that's what last week's portion ended with. And then this week's parsha that we started on Sunday talks about how Abraham was recovering from the circumcision 3 days later. And it says, through that, he was able to, through that commandment, he was able to reach very high revelation with the Creator, such that it says at the beginning of this week's parsha that because of, in merit of that commandment that he did, says the Creator, what's up, multi-dimensional man? Hey, how are you? Oh yeah, no pressure. I just figured I'd invite Ben. Yeah, good to see you again. It's been a couple days. That's nice. Yeah, we'll have everyone much less than something. But yeah, just checking. Cool. commentaries, especially the Lubavitch Rebbe, says that because Abraham did this great commandment of circumcision in last week's parsha, it says in the beginning of this week's parsha that he was sitting in the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day, which wasn't just ordinary heat. But Rashi says that the Creator took the sun out of its shield. Usually the sun shines with some kind of shield that surrounds the sun to limit how hot things get. But it says when the Messiah comes, the Creator will take the sun out of its shield. There will be all kinds of healing power that comes from that. And there will also be a new revelation of the Creator's light, which is also metaphorically compared to sunlight as well. So when the Creator takes the sun out of his shield, there'll be like an infinite revelation of the Creator's energy in all of the world. That's going to be when the Messiah comes. And this is what happened after Abraham circumcised himself. He was able to reach such a high revelation of the Creator that it was already a taste of the Messianic era, where the Creator took the sun out of its shield. And that's what it says in the beginning of this week's parsha, which says that Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. The commentator Rashi says that the heat of the day was just because the Creator took the sun out of the shield. And then because of that, it says the Creator revealed himself to Abraham. Or no, first it says the Creator revealed himself to Abraham. A revelation of the essence of the Creator. And then it says he was sitting at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day, which is pretty intense. And then after that, then our portion talks about how there was 3 angels that came to Abraham disguised as men. It's actually a pretty exciting story. It says that there was angels. Really, it says Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent. Okay, this was 3 days after his circumcision. He was in a lot of pain. But the Creator revealed himself to him and took the sun out of his shield, which has all kinds of healing power to heal him, make him feel better, basically. But Abraham was sitting, even though he was in pain before that, he was sitting at the entrance of his tent in order to look for guests. So Abraham really wanted to have guests. That was like his big thing. He was like hosting people, giving them food, etc. I mean, one thing he would do is he would host them, give them food, and then afterwards he would tell them that they should thank the one who the food belongs to. Like first people started thanking Abraham. It's like, oh wow, thank you so much for food. And it was like, wait, you're thanking me for the food? I created food? No, you have to thank the Creator of food. And then if they didn't want to, then Abraham said, okay, well, if you actually think the food comes from me, then maybe you should pay me like a huge amount of money, because this was like in the middle of the desert that Abraham would usually camp out and it's hard to get food in the middle of the desert. So Abraham came to church like, yeah, you can either thank the one who actually created food from nothing, or you just thank a regular person, but if you thank me, then that you're implying that I'm the one who has it. And since you're implying the one who has it, then it's only fitting that you should pay like exorbitant amounts. So based on that, you would get people to be inspired to thank the Creator. So Abraham was always looking for guests. So in this week's parsha, even after he was circumcised and in a lot of pain, the main thing he was worried about was how many guests is he going to have. So he was sitting in the heat of the day, in the middle of the desert, looking for any wanderers. And it happens to be that the Creator also wanted to send him some messages through angels. And Abraham was used to seeing angels. Angels were like nothing to Abraham. But what really mattered to Abraham was having guests. So the Creator disguised. This is in Genesis, by the way, in chapter 19, maybe. The Creator disguised angels as men, since there was 3 men that appeared to him after the Creator appeared to him and healed him from his circumcision. And the Creator wanted to send us messages through angels. So it says there was 3 men that happened to be walking by, and those men were actually angels. But Abraham didn't know that at first. And Abraham invited them into his tent, and he gave them a lot of food. And it says that they actually ate and drank, even though they were angels, which don't actually eat and drink, but they did some kind of illusion to make it look like they were eating and drinking to be polite. And then Abraham gave them a lot of food and stuff. Basically, but then after, in the middle of the meal, it was revealed that they're actually angels, and they came to tell him a message. One message the reason why there's three angels is because one angel it cannot do two different tasks. So there was three different things that needed to happen, and one of those things was to tell Abraham some information, which was done by one angel, and other things were done um, by the other angels. I want to say, I'm pretty sure one of the, okay, so anyway, yeah, okay. So one of the angels told Abraham that because he circumcised himself, which was like the great grandmother, that he would merit to have a new son, Isaac, who would be the forefather of the Jewish people, chosen nation. So that was a really big deal. So basically, the angel made a mark on the wall, and it says when the sunlight hits that mark on the wall in the next year, then Abraham will have a son. His wife will give birth to his next son, which was kind of a miracle because his wife was 90 years old at that time. And he was about 100. He was 90. He was 99 at that time, but he would have been 100 when the kid was born. I'm not sure if he was 100 that day or if he was going to be 100 soon, but he was 99 or 100 years old. And even though right a few hundred years before that, not only a few hundred years, even a few generations before Abraham, people would give birth at 500 years. But that was already in that earlier times. I mean, even then it was kind of considered ancient times. And by the time Abraham was around, people started giving birth a lot earlier. So they were already like 90 and 100 years old. But this angel made a mark in the wall and said, okay, when the sunlight hits this mark, then you're going to have a son on that day in the next year. Then it says Sarah, his wife, became like a young woman again, basically, and she was able to have kids, which was a miracle. So that was one angel told Abraham the good news, and then he disappeared. The second angel healed him from the circumcision. It said, that's the part that confused me, because I thought that the Creator healed him when he revealed himself to him, but I'm not sure if the healing was complete until the angel actually came. But it said he was somehow involved in the healing, the angel. But he did not disappear, because even though an angel can do different things, but he did one healing, but he was also going to do a different act of healing, which we'll get to soon. So anyway, this is what happened in the beginning of Parsha, and then these two angels leave. They don't disappear like the other angel, but they leave. One of the angels, I think that angel that healed him was Raphael, which means like the angel of like healing kind of thing. So these two angels leave, but they don't tell Abraham why they're leaving right away. And Abraham doesn't really know why they're leaving right away. But the Creator says to himself, like, oh, am I not going to tell Abraham like what's happening? Like Abraham's like his trusted person. So the Creator wanted to keep Abraham in the loop, not just to do things mysteriously. So really the reason why those angels, the other two angels were there, were to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. In Hebrew, Sodom and Amorah. For some reason we say Gomorrah and how do we say Sodom? But in English it's just Sodom. There's really 5 different cities. There was a few other cities around Sodom and Gomorrah that were also destroyed as well. I'm pretty sure all of them were destroyed. But the main ones were Sodom and Gomorrah. Because there were really bad people there, so they knew about the Creator. They intended to rebel against him. And the main sin that they had was that they would not take care of poor people in the city. Not only did they not take care of poor people, but they actually punished people for trying to take care of poor people. And so a lot of different things. They didn't have that attitude that what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. Not only did they not take care of them, but they made it like a criminal act to even take care of other people. So they did not completely caring for other people. They even punished people for trying to care for other people. And after a lot of bad things they did, then the Creator decided that he's going to destroy the entire city. But Abraham had a nephew that was living in one of the cities. He wasn't just living there; he was like a big judge and a big esteemed person in the city. So one of the angels went to destroy the entire city, while the other angel, who already healed Abraham, also went with him in order to save his nephew, because saving and healing are considered the same thing. So that's why that angel could do both of them, even though an angel can't do two different tasks, because saving and healing is considered the same task. But the other angel had to destroy the city. And then there's a whole story how Abraham's nephew called Lot he was just like, since he was appointed as a big judge in the city, so he was like an esteemed person. And then the angels essentially came by his house, and then he invited. I mean, he didn't know they were angels at first, but he invited them in. They looked like men, so they were disguising themselves as men. And then they came, and then he invited them in, and they started talking about the people of Sodom. Lot was saying, I mean, the angels were kind of like deciding, okay, like, they already knew that they were going to destroy it, but they were kind of like getting the conversation even before Lot knew they were angels. They were asking, like, oh, like, what kind of people are they? Are they good or bad? And Lot said that they're mainly bad. They're pretty much like yeah, they're pretty much like mostly bad. And like they had like a bunch of conversations about them for a long time, basically. But the conclusion was that they were pretty much all bad. And then like after that whole thing, basically um, then the people. So basically, the people of Sodom had like a policy that like people weren't allowed to have any guests in their house. It was an evil policy, basically, because having guests is a good thing. But once the people found out that they were guests, then they got really upset, and they tried to like attack Lot and do pretty bad stuff to them and the guests. And then when that happened, then the people essentially left. Then the angels essentially saved Lot from the city. They all left together. The angels essentially saved Lot. And then Lot tried to stay. He tried to like stay and save his money, but the angels said like, oh no, and then Lot tried to stay. He tried to like stay and save his money, but the forced him out of the city. And then you shouldn't try to save your money. So basically, the angels like the other line that got paused. Yeah, so the angels pretty much saved Lot and the other line that got paused. Yeah, so the angels pretty much saved Lot and his immediate family from the city of Sodom. And then after they left Sodom, then it says there was a bunch of like fire that rained down from the heavens to destroy the city of Sodom. And then at that time, they thought the entire world was destroyed because they saw this huge fire come down from the heavens, and like the entire city was totally brutalized. It was like not only was it fire rain on it, but it says the city like I think it turned upside down. I'm pretty sure it was totally destroyed. And then a lot of other stuff happened basically. I mean, no, so that's the beginning of the parsha and the middle of the parsha. And some other significant events is that before the angels came to Sodom to destroy it, there's a whole conversation. There's like maybe there's like 40 righteous people throughout the five. And then the Creator's like, okay, if it has this many righteous people, about like 35, like going down with the numbers, like what if it has this many righteous people? Will you destroy? He's like 40. The Creator's like, okay, if it has this many righteous people, I'm not going to even 40 righteous people. I said, oh, what about like 35? So he kept on like going, like, what if it has this many righteous people? Will you destroy it then? And essentially, righteous people per city, or maybe there's like 9 per city, and then if they count the Creator with them, then it's like 10. And when you have 10 people, then that's considered like a strong thing. So he was looking like, okay, maybe there's like 10 righteous people per city. And that would be enough to save them. And then there was like this whole back and forth between Abraham and the Creator for a long time. And then Abraham, essentially, the conclusion was that there was barely any righteous people. There was still a few righteous. I mean, it's still implied that there could have been a few righteous people, but Abraham knew that if there was only a few righteous people, that would not have been enough to save
the rest of the city, because in the times of Noah, there was already a lot of righteous people. There was Noah, his wife, his 3 sons. That's 3 plus 2 is 5. Plus their wives. So that's 8 people total. And since even though there was 8 righteous people in the whole world, but that was not enough to save the world. So Abraham was trying to like find, okay, maybe there's at least like 9 per city, or at least 9 in one city, etc. But no, there wasn't 9. There was just loads. Or there could have been 8 or less. I think Abraham's nephew might have been considered righteous, even though he was kind of like half righteous, etc. But he didn't really ask about if there was less than 8 per city, even though there could have been. But even if there was cities, because the whole world had 8 people and it was destroyed. So after Abraham realized that there's nothing else he could say in their defense, then he just kind of like stopped talking to the Creator, and then the angels went and destroyed it. And then afterwards, so after that story happens, then it talks about the next year, where Abraham essentially had a son, the son of Isaac, who was the forefather of the Jewish people. And it was a big deal because they were like really old, as mentioned, and like they weren't expecting people to have kids, and people didn't really believe that they could have kids when they told people about it. But and people thought that, okay, maybe I thought that Sarah took like some baby from the marketplace and just pretended that he was the son. So to prove them wrong, they said like all the other pregnant women, or all the other women who just gave birth, brought their kids to Sarah, and Sarah fed all of them, every single. So like they all knew that she had just given birth. It was like definite proof, and people might have, yeah. So basically, that's what happened. I mean, the question is that Isaac was born on the same day that the angels came to Abraham, the same calendar day in the solar year, because it says that was on the 15th of the month of Nisan, which is what Passover would later be. It says when the angels came to Lot, it says he was eating matzah, because in order to commemorate Passover, even though Passover never actually happened yet, because Passover is when the Jewish people left Egypt. But there was still some kind of holiday of Passover, even before it happened, that Abraham knew about, and I guess he taught Lot, his nephew, about it. So it says Lot was eating matzah to celebrate that pre-Passover holiday. So on the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Nisan. No, I said earlier solar, but really, so the Jewish calendar goes by the moon. So the angels came to Abraham and Lot and destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah on Passover of 1 year. And they said, when the sun reaches this mark in the next year, then Abraham will have a son. And then 12 lunar months later, in the Jewish calendar, in that exact same calendar day, Isaac was born. But the fact that he said, when the sun reaches this mark again, that implied that the sun was already shining on that. I mean, that might imply that the sun was like already shining in the same place, which would imply that it would go by the solar year. But, so that's kind of one of the questions. But the commentaries, I mean, I think the conclusion is that when the sun reaches this mark in the next year, it did not mean necessarily, or it did not mean that the sun was shining at that mark at the time. It says, okay, when the sun later reaches this mark, then that would be the day that he gave birth. But at the time that he made the mark, it could not have been possible that the sun was shining there, because it was going by, because he was born on the same lunar day, which is a different calendar cycle. But anyway, so the Torah talks about how Isaac was born a year after Abraham's circumcision, etc. And then a few other things happened, and then one of the most significant parts of the parsha is the end of it, which talks about the binding of Isaac test. After Isaac was already grown up and 37 years old, he was a very mature adult, that Abraham already loved him and taught him a lot of Torah, etc. And after the Creator promised him this son, and that the son would be the ancestor of the whole Jewish people. And at this time, Isaac didn't even have any kids. But the Creator told Abraham to take Isaac as a sacrifice to a mountain which happens to be the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. He told him, okay, go, but he didn't tell him what mountain it was going to be. First of all, he said, just take your son, your only son that you love, and which is Isaac. I mean, even though he also had Ishmael, and both of them were only children from each of their mothers, and both of them were loved, etc. But the Creator told him to take Isaac to one of the mountains that he's going to show him. He didn't even tell him what mountain, just like when he told him to go to the land of Israel. He didn't tell him what land to go to. He said, "Oh, start going, and I'll tell you where to go." So he said, "Okay, you just take Isaac bring him up to one of the mountains as a sacrifice, and I'm not going to tell you which mountain. Just start going." And then Abraham essentially saddled his donkey himself to carry the supplies. Then he took a couple servants with him, and he took Isaac, and he told Isaac, "Okay, we're going to go on like some trip." He didn't tell him about the actual commandment that he was supposed to slaughter Isaac. He said, "Okay, we're going to go to slaughter a sacrifice to the Creator," but he didn't tell him what sacrifice. And then it says, as they were walking on the way, Isaac said, "Okay, well, we have all the supplies for the sacrifice. We have like the knife, we have the fire to burn it up, but where's the actual sacrifice?" And then Abraham said, "The Creator is going to show us the sacrifice, my son." I mean, the simple meaning is like, okay, the Creator is going to show us the sacrifice, comma, my son, meaning he's talking to his son. But Rashi says, based on that Abraham was really hinting to him that, okay, the Creator is going to show us a sacrifice. It could be an animal, but if there's no animal, then the sacrifice is going to be you, basically, his son. So it says that time Isaac knew that possibility was going to happen. Wanted to. He was 37 years old, but he knew that's what the Creator wanted. That's what the Creator wanted. And they both walked with one heart. And it says at one point they came to a river that was blocking their path. And it says Abraham jumped into the river, and one of the Midrashic commentaries says that when he jumped into the river, because he's not even going to think about obstacles, like, oh, there's an obstacle here, maybe we should do something, maybe we should go back, but no, he's not even going to consider the obstacles. And when that happened, the river instantly vanished, according to one of the commentaries in the Midrash. When you face your obstacles head on in life, then they're like pretty much just nothing. Finally, there was like a cloud on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and they knew that was the mountain that the Creator wanted them to go to. And then Abraham built an altar there. And one of the commentaries by the Bach Rebbe, actually, it said that he actually must have rented the land. I mean, you can't just build altars anywhere you want to. You have to have like permits and stuff like that. So it says earlier that the Canaanite was in the land. This was at the time where the Canaanite nations were conquering the land from Shem, Noah's son, who was the ancestor of Abraham at that time. So really, the land originally belonged to Abraham's ancestor, who was named Shem, but the Canaanite nations were beginning to conquer it at that time. So the Canaanites had like the legal jurisdiction. So based on that, it says that Abraham must have rented the plot of land from the Canaanites to be able to build the altar there at that time. But so the point is, once he started building the altar, basically, and then there was no sacrifice there, so Abraham started binding Isaac as a sacrifice to put on the altar. He was about to slaughter him. Basically, he had the knife in his hand, and he was put his hand towards Isaac. He was about to slaughter him as a sacrifice, but then an angel called out from the heavens, said, "No, don't slaughter him." And then Abraham was like, "What is an angel doing here? Like, the Creator told me that I should slaughter him, so why is an angel trying to stop me?" And then one commentary says that even though the angel called out, Abraham kind of ignored it, and he tried to slaughter Isaac anyway, but then the angel didn't let him. Essentially, but then basically the angel tells him that really it was just a test, so the Creator doesn't actually want you to slaughter him, he just told you to bring him up to one of the mountains as a sacrifice, which could imply burning him up, but it could also just mean to bring him up to a mountain. And then the act of bringing him up, that itself would be considered as if he would be a sacrifice, but he could still be alive. So basically, Isaac lived, but it was still considered as if he was a sacrifice. with him. And so at that moment also, it says there was a rock in a thicket bush had been prepared for them to make the sacrifice. And it says that Abraham offered that ram as a sacrifice. But when he was doing it, essentially the ram was like a replacement for Isaac. So as he was slaughtering the ram and skinning it, etc., he said on every action that he did to the ram, he said, okay, let it be considered as if I'm doing this to my son, basically. So basically everything, all the merits that the sacrifices have for being sacrificed, Isaac got all that spiritual energy, that sacrifice that happens when people sacrifice animals to the Creator. So Isaac had all that, the benefit of that, while he was still alive, and that was what gave Jewish people like holiness later on. So yeah, that's pretty much this parsha. And then after that whole thing, Abraham realized like, oh wow, if he in the next week's parsha, how Abraham finds a wife for Isaac, which was Rebecca, basically, and that's where they have later. That's the rest of the Torah talks about. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff, and I'm not sure if anyone else wants to say anything, or I don't even know who's watching. But
Very cool, very cool. So the one question,
yeah,
I don't know if you mentioned it or not. I might have missed it. But died when she heard that she learned that Isaac is going to be sacrificed.
Close, but it doesn't say that. It's interesting. The reasoning why she died is actually kind of weird, because it says that after the entire incident where Isaac came out okay,
But just the shock that he could have been sacrificed.